1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm talking with Colonel Jack Treadwell, Congressional Medal of Honor winner of World War II, now a colonel with the 4th Army at the 4th U.S. Army at San Antonio. Colonel Treadwell was one of Oklahoma's Congressional Medal winners. He is in Oklahoma City today, which is March the 2nd, 1970, for the presentation of the 45th Division history. Colonel Treadwell, I wonder if you could tell me just briefly about your birthplace and parentage.
Well, I was actually born in Alabama, and my folks moved to Snyder, Oklahoma, when I was less than a year old. And I was raised in Snyder and attended public schools in Snyder, and then enrolled at Southwestern University and was there for a short time, and then came into the Army in January of 1941. Of course, at this time I joined the 45th Division. I was in G Company, the 180th Infantry, received my basic training with this company and remained with them through my basic training and until the division went into Sicily and later into France and Germany. And I received a battlefield commission while fighting on Anzio in Italy, which time I was transferred over to the 3rd Battalion K Company and stayed with them for a period of about 6 months, and then went to F Company, which of course is from Hugo, the National Guard Company, and I commanded that company until I was wounded near the end of World War II.
Colonel Treadwell, speaking of the action, were you a draftee or were you with the National Guard?
I was actually a volunteer. I volunteered and came in. The reason I did this, I was, of course, knew that I would be assigned to the 45th Division. I had not been in the National Guard, but all of the original volunteers that came in at the time I did were assigned to the 45th Division, which was at Fort Sill.
Colonel Treadwell, could you comment on the first action that your unit experienced, and a little bit about the action of the men and what happened the first time you went into combat?
Well, yes, our initial combat was on the invasion of Sicily on June the 10th, 1943. And that was our initial induction into combat, and it was considerably different than what we had thought. However, the training that we had gone through proved very beneficial, and it took us some week or so to get settled down and move at the pace that we were permitted to keep our units together and move forward.
Colonel Treadwell, could you comment, say, other than the action in which you received the Congressional Medal Award, what would you say was the most memorable action that your unit participated, that you were with?
Well, to me, the most memorable action was on the breakout of Anzio, which was, as I recall, the 23rd of May of 1944. We, of course, had been on Anzio for some months since in January, and this occurred in May. And the breakout of there and getting moving forward and going into Rome, to me, was the most memorable action.
Could you comment on Oklahomans generally and their fighting ability and their action as an Oklahoma unit?
Well, of course, when I start praising the Oklahomans, I'm praising myself, but their actions in combat was second to none of my experience in World War II. We had a lot of replacements in the division that were non-residents of Oklahoma, that were from the New England states, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and through that area. And to me, the Oklahomans took second place to none.
Could you comment on any individuals, either officers or enlisted men from Oklahoma who were memorable to you during the World War II because of their action or because of other personal reasons?
Well, two in particular that I am aware of. One is a young man named Herndon, who was from Idabel, Oklahoma. To me, was the most outstanding soldier that I saw. He received a battlefield commission early in World War II. His first name is Quintus T. Herndon, and he was commissioned as second lieutenant and then was later wounded very seriously and was evacuated back to the States.
Can you think of any others that are particularly memorable?
Yes, there are many. Actually, Jake Young, who is also from Idabel. I'm mentioning several from Idabel. The reason I joined G Company, the 180th Infantry, which was the National Guard company in Idabel. And let me see, some of the others, when I went to K Company, which was, I'm trying to say Durant. It wasn't Durant, and I forget really what town it was from. I was there a short time with them, and there were the same number that showed up excellent in combat. And of course, some of the others that had joined us by this time had joined us before we left the States. By the time we got up into Italy and then southern France, had been promoted up to platoon sergeants and squad leaders and whatnot, and showed the true merit and the training that they had received before we left the States, and the actions in combat that they were led by the people from Oklahoma, of course, in those early stages, and came through in real fine color.
Thinking still in terms of Oklahoma, can you think of any commanders that you served under or with that you feel are memorable, and if you like, relate any specific story or action about these people that might be worth recalling?
Well, of course, the first one that comes to mind is General Muldrow, who is retired down at Norman. I haven't seen him in many years, but I saw a lot of him in World War II when he was a lieutenant colonel, battalion commander. And of course, the late General Raymond S. McLean I knew quite well, and he was the division artillery commander at the initial stages, and later went on and was the only National Guard officer to reach the rank of lieutenant general, who of course was from Oklahoma City.
Colonel Treadwell, I wonder if you could tell a little about the action in which you won the Congressional Medal of Honor, and naming any other people involved if you like.
Yes, the action occurred in the Seigfred Line, which was near the end of the war. It was March the 18th, to be exact. We had gotten up to the Seigfred Line and had been moving quite rapidly until we got there, and we were completely stopped by the pillboxes, which were so well camouflaged and concealed. And I remember in particular one young lieutenant, his last name was Billy. He was an Indian boy, and I don't actually recall what town in Oklahoma he's from. Slush Billy, who did just a terrific job leading his platoon and was later wounded and evacuated back.
Colonel Treadwell, you were wounded in the later in the war, weren't you? Could you tell us a little about the situation in which you were wounded?
Yes, this was actually I was wounded on my birthday, which is March the 30th of 1945, and the reason for my being wounded, there was a group of Germans that were holed up in some woods that were slowing up our advance, and I was told to send a patrol out to remove this resistance, and I sent the patrol out. The young patrol leader went to the wrong place, and I saw what he had done, so I went out and took over the patrol and led him down into the woods where the Germans were, and this was the time that I was wounded and evacuated back to the States. This is, as I say, on March the 30th, 1945.
Could you tell me a little about your later service in the Army following World War II, your assignments, and any particular things that you feel might be of interest?
Yes, very briefly, my first assignment after war was at Fort Benning, Georgia, with the 25th Infantry Combat Team, 25th Regimental Combat Team, after which I went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, with the 7th Infantry that was moved there to reopen that post, and from there I went to school at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and I went to Austria and spent 3 years in Austria. Then I went to New York, 1st Army Headquarters, where I was aide to the Commanding General, 1st Army. And from there I went to Leavenworth, to the Commanding General Staff College. And then I went out in Eniwetok, left my family here in Oklahoma while I had a short tour in Eniwetok, and then went to Fort Benning again and served there for 2 years into the Armed Forces Staff College. And back to 4th Army Headquarters at Fort Sam. From there I went to the Army War College, then went to Germany for 3 years, and went to Fort Benning again from there. And from Fort Benning, I went to Vietnam, where I just returned last October from Vietnam, and have been down at San Antonio since that time.
In your post-war service, post-World War II service, are there any Oklahomans that you feel are should be mentioned in either commanders or enlisted men that you've been in contact with whose action or whose service has been particularly memorable?
Well, there are several of us, of course, that stayed in the regular Army after World War II. The names that come to mind initially is, of course, Jim Dan Kersey, who's from Durant. There's Shelby Satterfield from Wagner. He is now retired out in California. And those are the two that come to mind right off. There was a Johnny Sessions from Idabel that went to OCS after the war. And I haven't seen him in several years. However, I saw quite a lot of him when he was going through the officer candidate school at Fort Benning. And actually, most of the others that I knew during the war and since the war and that stayed in the Army have retired.
Are there any comments that you could make on the 45th Division in following the division, which I know you have done since you left, as either on the National Guard or the 45th itself?
Of course, in the regular Army, when the 45th Division is mentioned, they have a very good reputation with the regular Army divisions. They know, of course, what the 45th Division did during World War II, and its record there and its record in Korea, which is one of the best in the Army.
Thank you very much, Colonel Jack Treadwell.